Hi, it's Stefan in Sofia, Bulgaria. I'm very happy to meet you again, and this time I'm going to share some insights about particular Bulgarian traditions. Traditions that are beyond our most well known ones, like Martinica, the one that you can see presented on the picture, these colorful red and white threads that we put on our wrists or on March the 1st, or also beyond cookery or mummers. I will dedicate a special video on them, but now I want to dive into some of the most mysterious traditions. Some of them are so mysterious that we don't remember them quite well because they're practically not observed anymore. But before starting, let's say a few words about tradition that is important for such uneasy days, for times of suffer and disease. This is a tradition named wildfire or Lord's fire. In Bulgarian, div огън. Actually, it is tradition that was observed during a pandemic to prevent the spread of the disease, or if the disease was still not in a given village, it was used to prevent it from coming. So what do you need? You need a very simple wooden tool. Typically, it is made of two different wooden materials. Of course, they have to be very dry. The two vertical wooden sticks that you can see on the picture, they are made of linden tree, and the horizontal one, it is made of hazel tree. So you roll a rope around the middle one. Two young and strong men would be holding the rope on the opposite edges, and they will start moving it back and forth. And they'll be doing that till we'll have the fire. Actually, it is considered a divine fire because practically you don't have a match, you don't have a lighter to do so. And we all know the divine power of fire. Even in ancient days, people would use fire for protection from beasts and wild animals. They will use it to heat themselves up. So fire has always played an important role in the different civilizations. Here it was the same case. And as the source of the disease was unknown, that's why it was considered to be originated from some evil spirits or ghosts. And if you wanted to keep them away, you needed fire, especially this wildfire. Every single member of the community, of the village, would come and take a flame from the fire to their home, and thus their home would be considered to be protected. And the same was valid not only for diseases on people, but also diseases on animals. So it was quite a spread tradition. And when we talk about fire, probably the most famous Bulgarian ritual related to fire is nestinari, or fire dancers. Actually, if you want to see this ritual in the very natural habitat, you should go on a specific date. That would be May 21st, the day of Saint Constantine and his mother, Helena. Just a few villages in Bulgaria still observe this ritual, and mostly they are situated in southeastern Bulgaria, very close to the border with Turkey and Greece. Those would be the villages of Kusti, Burdilovo, and especially Bulgari. The ritual is kept also in a few Greek villages to the south of the border. So it shows the pan-national tradition of this ritual. Actually, this tradition is kept and is preserved by typically people from one big family. So those people, both men and women, preserve in their genes the ritual. What I mean by preserving the ritual in their genes, actually, not every single person can do the ritual because it is not simply stomping on the fire or crossing the fire. The one who perform it, they would go in something like a trance. People who witness this ritual, they would say that their body temperature goes down, they become pale, and practically then they enter the fire. It is considered that they used as a portal between the life of the living people and those who are not among us anymore. They are also used for making predictions. They are used to foresee the future. But it's not only the future of a certain individual, but it is also the future of the whole village, of the community, of the country. And when you see them entering the fire, they would typically have an icon in their hands. That would be a specific icon of the two saints that I already mentioned, Saint Constantine and his mother Helena. And actually, by entering the fire, this is considered to be the peak of the ritual. If you go to some restaurant in Bulgaria and you see the ritual performed, just be sure that it's a tourist trap. The real deal could be seen only in Strangest mountain and on May 21st. And when I mentioned about rituals related to fire, rituals where the connection between life and death is observed, there's one very interesting ritual named the Dance of the Dead. Actually, the traditional dance in Bulgarian lands, as it is in some other Slavic countries, is called horo. It is a circle dance where people are holding for their hands. But this dance is quite specific. It commemorates those who are not among us anymore. It is typically observed in one specific minority, the Vlah minority in north western Bulgaria, very close to the town of Vidin along the Danube River. Actually, this minority, they would have more or less Romanian roots, and their connection to the death is quite strong. Typically, it's a ritual observed on the second day of Easter, where the people from the village would gather on the main square holding portraits of their loved ones who passed away. The music will start playing and people will start dancing, but they will hold in their hands the portraits of those who are not among us. And they would start giving drinks, they would start giving towels, food. But if you drink, you should be sure that first you have to pour a part of the drink on the ground to commemorate those who are dead, and then you can drink. Actually, it's an interesting ritual that not many people have heard about it. But when we talk about rituals related to death, probably one of the most interesting one is a funeral of a living person. It's not a mistake. Yes, it's a funeral of a living person called Pomana. Actually, it is also observed in northwestern Bulgaria, both by Bulgarians and Vlachs. Actually, if you read some newspapers where journalists are trying to find something sensational about this ritual, don't buy anything you read. Yes, these are regions that are poor. People are lonely, especially elderly people, because the young people have emigrated from there. But this has almost nothing to do with their economical status. Why? Because it's ritual much older than the hardships nowadays. Some even would try to find a connection between this ritual and the life of the ancient peoples of these lands, the Thracians. According to Greek historians, ancient Greek historians like Herodotus, for example, the Thracians celebrated death. They would organize great festivities because they believed that the real life would start after death. They believed in the immortality of soul, and that's why such great celebrations were organized. But a little bit more about this ritual. On this ritual, the closest of the person who is the main character of this funeral of a living person would get together. They would share some food and drinks, but on a separate table, it will be those who are meant to be buried. But they will remain silent. They would not going to eat anything. Why? Because presumably they are not among us. They are dead. That's why they have to remain silent. And it is interesting that even Christian Orthodox priests are involved in this ritual, so pretty much it's like a real ritual. Unlike the only difference is that we have a living person here, not a dead person. But not all of our rituals are so gloomy or related to that. There are some rituals which are meant to celebrate life. And one of them, quite interesting, is related to the day of the Ascension of Christ, or Spasovden in Bulgarian language. Actually, this day doesn't have a specific set date because it is 40 days after Easter. It's a day when we celebrate the revival of nature. It's a day where you might find a way to cure a known illness or even to cure infertility, because this is the day when the forest nymphs or fairies, called in Bulgarian Rusali, are back. They would have special healing powers, but they have to be quite happy to use them for good. So this is the day when we or those who have reproductive problems would go and try to find a cure. But what's specific? If it is the wife in the family, she would go out of the village with another man, not her husband. It's important that this man is not part of the family. It should be a stranger to the family, and it is considered not a sin if during their intercourse in the night she is able to conceive afterwards. So this is the time when, if you want to find a cure, you would sleep or walk on white dittany, or in Bulgarian language, rosen. Another ritual or tradition related to the power of herbs and plants is Enyovden, or this is the birth of Saint John the Baptist, June 24th. It is just a couple of days away from the summer solstice, so definitely the pre-Christian and the Christian traditions, they mixed, they combined in order to have something that is still venerated in Bulgaria. Actually, we are joking that it is the appropriate time to take a bath in the year. Imagine 150 years ago, in these lands it was quite hard to take a bath every single day. Even it was considered that you should take a bath only 3 times in the year. On the day of St. George, when the bears are taking bath, on Enyovden, and in the high summer. So 3 times. This is the day when we have the highest amount of mountain dew in the grass, in the meadows. So practically you go out, roll in the grass, and miraculously you have already had a bath. Of course, when you finish the ritual, typically the women who observed the ritual would go together to the nearby lake or river and would take bath there. Also, it's time when you make a wreath from different herbs and plants. And actually, throughout the year, you would take a piece of the herbs there and use it to cure diseases. Actually, in the Bulgarian tradition, there are 77 and a half diseases. And for those diseases, there are herbs that could be used for treatment because of their healing powers. But you have cure for 77 of the diseases. And what about the half one? Actually, the half one is considered a disease of unknown source. So you don't have a cure. And according to the Bulgarian tradition, you take a bunch of those flowers and herbs, throw them up in the air, close your eyes, and the one that you manage to catch with your hand is the one that would cure the disease with the unknown character. Also, this is a time for another part of the ritual, which is called Enyus Bride. Typically a young girl around the age of 5. Sometimes it is considered that the best that it is an orphan, or at least a girl without a father, would be dressed as a bride. Of course, this girl is a virgin, so it symbolizes the purity of the ritual. So you can see on the picture in the middle that she would be covered with red veil, symbolizing the act of getting married. And what will be the rest of the day? This girl will be visiting different parts of the village, but she is not walking because she is barefoot. She would be on the shoulders of the other girls and women around. And actually, this time of the year, with the help of this girl, there will be predictions made. Predictions which girl is going to get married and who will be the lucky man for that. Of course, a lot of rituals are rituals that are related to different aspects of the weather. Especially, drought was considered an important problem for the old Bulgarians. So there are different rituals fighting drought. One of the typical ones was called butterfly or peperuda. Typically, it's a young girl, 10, 12 years old. She is dressed with white chemise only and holding branches of different plants and bushes and with all green leaves attached to her shirt. She will be visiting the different water sources in the village, trying to ask all the divine powers to have rain there. Nowadays, it is observed only by Bulgarian Muslim in some of the Rodopi villages. And what is interesting is that the butterfly there is not a girl, but it is a young boy instead. Typically, this ritual is accompanied by another one. If you read the name, it will be written German. There are no Germans involved in this ritual. Actually, the right pronunciation will be German. It's another ritual against drought, and typically this ritual follows the butterfly one. The women from the village would make a small figurine, typically maximum 50 centimeters, which figurine resembles a male body. Typically, it's made from mud or clay, and there's an emphasis on the phallic aspect of the figure. Actually, a significant part of this ritual is related to the funeral. First, the women would place this figurine on a tile or a wooden beam or a small wooden box which represents coffin. Then they will start crying out, they will be lamenting the figure, and finally they will bury it very very close to a water source like a spring, well, river, whatever, or if they don't have one, it will be buried at an intersection of different roads. But if this ritual is not working, then we might have a problem. What kind of a problem? There will be a significant problem because it is not just nature. It is considered that there is a dragon nearby. The dragon nearby is actually considered to be a stranger to the village. A dragon who drinks all the water, getting ready to steal a woman from the village or to make some other bad things. So this is a ritual where, unlike the other two, men are involved. Young men from the village, in the middle of the night, they will arm themselves with wooden sticks. Completely naked, they will start going from house to house and they will check every single place if the dragon is hiding there. And they will have to do this in a complete silence because it is believed that if someone has spoken, they would get the disease because the dragon would be able to see them where they're trying to chase the dragon. So a ritual which more or less nowadays is not observed anymore. And something that, to finish on a lighter note, a ritual which takes place in the winter. In January, this is Epiphany. Typically, it's a ritual where Bulgarian Orthodox priests would throw a wooden cross into the freezing waters. This could be a river, lake, dam, or sometimes even a swimming pool or a fountain if you don't have a bigger water source. The one who manages to get the cross, there'll be only men jumping, it's part of the tradition, would be very healthy throughout the year. And part of this tradition, which gained popularity in the recent years, is the so-called freezing horo, or is freezing dance, traditional dance in the waters of Tunja River. It typically takes place in central Bulgaria, in the town of Kalofer, and typically only young people, men, would join the horo. They'll be drinking wine or rakia till late in the previous night, and early in the morning of Epiphany, they would go out accompanied by music performed from typically bagpipes and tupans or drum-like music instrument. They will jump into the river. They are not going to compete for the cross, and the cross would be given to the youngest boy performing there. It's for good health and a ritual which is getting more and more popular. And you may ask, no more traditions? Are these the only traditions in Bulgaria nowadays? Of course not. There are plenty more, and I'll make some new videos about them, but I'm finishing this one with probably the most Bulgarian flower. You may ask, isn't that the rose, the essential oil rose? It's popular, but the one that is deeply rooted in our traditions is called zdravets, or that's wild geranium. Zdravets, literally translated from Bulgarian, more or less means health, zdrave. So this is the plant or flower of health. Typically, it accompanies every single tradition. Doesn't matter if we're talking about decoration of houses, clothing, or food, it will be the wild geranium there. And if you want to have the final touch, we should simply add a red, red piece of thread, which we use together with the wild geranium. Red for protection from evil spirits. So we are protected from the evil spirits and we are healthy. So I wish you to be healthy and protected from evil spirits. Thank you for being with me and see you down the road.